Jane, I'm so excited to welcome you on the podcast because you've been in the recruiting industry for 23 years. You've been coaching for the last 10, and you help recruitment companies scale. So it's really great to have you here. Welcome on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And now, when I'm kind of introducing you, I'm thinking about one person. She is a colleague of ours. She's been working with us for a while. She's based in Romania in Balkan, and she is kind of struggling to get a next client. She's been doing recruiting for quite some time, so it's not like she's complete fresher. But also, some of the clients that she's been recruiting for, they are no longer recruiting. She is trying to get new business, new clients, but she's struggling. So, I mean, when I was talking to her last time, she was saying that she keeps sending emails, but almost no one responds. And even if they respond, usually the message is negative.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what is happening around the world to a lot of people. So, in general, like, what would you advise to people who struggle with the same?
Well, I mean, it's so current, isn't it? And I know we were talking previously. This is probably the number one thing that people approach us with is I need to generate a regular flow of vacancies from a regular flow of clients, and how do I do that? Um, and again, because as you very kindly said, 23 years in the industry, so I am a little bit old. I remember when we started in recruitment and it was a phone book and a dial phone and no mobiles, no laptops. And we did it the only way we knew how. We picked up the phone and we said, "Hi, I'd love to speak to your sales director or your technical director." And then we attempted to sell. And now it's almost like, and that was very simple. It was hugely simple. And now we're in this world of, right, well, what can we do? We can send them a LinkedIn. We can approach them on Snapchat. Somebody said to me the other day, we can reach out on Instagram. We can create branding. We can send emails. We can send automated sequences. We can record video content. Like it's noisy now in the recruitment world. And I resonate with your colleague. If we're using email as our primary route to open the door, what I would rely on is that you're hoping that your email lands on the same day that your prospect client says, "God, I hope a recruiter gets in touch today. That'd be amazing. That will absolutely make my day." Or we're following up on a sequence, and eventually the client's going, "Do you know what? You're persevering. Let's break it down." So for me, there's got to be multi channels of outreach. And also, when we're looking at our new clients, words that I've always lived and died by since from when I got good in recruitment as opposed to when I was average, was the moment you stop trying to chase the client and stop trying to chase the vacancy, but instead start to look for people who have problems that you can help, is the time that your business development will start to change. Because if we're just looking for the person to pay our next rent check or to add to our commission, I would always argue that's not necessarily the right reasons to be going to market. Whereas if you know you're exceptionally good at helping a certain group of people achieve their staffing requirements, that's a much better tone to go to market with. How can I help you rather than the, "Hey, do you have any vacancies I can help you fill?" So I suppose the first thing that I would look at with your Romanian colleague is, before we talk about anything else, I'd be talking about the mindset that's employed when she goes to market. Like, what is she hoping to achieve? And what's the benefit of people taking her call? What's the benefit of people answering her email? Because then we're going to look more into the psychology of that. And I suspect that tiny tweak would generate some relatively decent results. But also, there feels like in today's market, there's a real weight on email and LinkedIn outreaches. Now, I don't know about you, but I checked my LinkedIn just before we came on today's call, and I think I'd had something like 15 business development outreaches. Um, this morning, as always, I woke up. I have that horrible habit of looking at my phone straight away. But the first thing that I do is I bulk delete. So I
Mm.
literally look at what's coming overnight and then I delete it. So if I don't recognize your email, you're not coming into my world. Like, I don't even open. So if they're your two primary tools, how do we even know they're being read?
Mm.
So for me, a successful business development strategy at this moment combines your email outreach, your social media outreach, and your telephone or your face-to-face outreach. We've got to add I was going to say humanity, that could be a little bit deep. We have to add the human element back into business development and perhaps stop hiding behind text so much.
Yeah, and it's so good that you also mentioned the mindset or the psychology behind it, because with every day when she or kind of anyone doing the business development doesn't get a positive response, it's getting harder and harder, right? Because you send another 50 emails, no one responds. The next day you wake up, oh, now I'm sending another 50 emails. Again, no one responds. Like, oh, okay, you shake it off, but then the next day comes and you send another 50 emails, no one responds. So how to handle this emotional discomfort, so to
Yeah,
speak?
it's a really good question, and for that, you need to know your data. So what I would be looking at is how many people do need to respond for it to convert to a vacancy. Like you have to know what that looks like. If we use a separate analogy, um, imagine that if you had 5 stone of weight, I can't compute it into kilos, but if you imagine, so you had a lot of weight to lose, and you wake up on a Monday and you say, right, this is it. I'm going to make that change. I'm now going to diet. So, and we start eating well and eating balanced nutrition, etc. And then you get to the end of the week and you get back on the scales and you've lost 4 pounds and you go, but I've got 5 stone to lose. Like that's not even 5%. Oh my God, I'm so demotivated. Um, from that point, so we not set our expectations. So when it comes to business development, we have to have really clear set expectations of what we think a good return is going to be. So if off the back of sending 50 emails, you're expecting to get at least one bite, I would be then looking at the quality of that email going, well, we didn't get that. So what's gone wrong?
Mm,
If it's that we know you have to send 200 emails to get one bite, then we're only 25% of the way through that journey. And it might be that once we've established what the ratio is, we then look to input skill into it and pull that ratio down. So we take it from being 200 emails to 100 emails, and then eventually 25, and so on and so forth. But on the mindset side, that's where data for me is the real difference. And I irritate the people that I train quite heavily because what I always say is don't tell me how you feel. Tell me what the data is saying to you because we all have those days. Oh my God, I've made so many business development calls. I'm exhausted. And when I go, how many? I don't know lots, but how
mm,
many? Well, I
3.
made 10. Yeah, I made 10. How many people did you speak to? Two. Okay. And you didn't get the result that you wanted. So, tapering it with reality and also remembering that this is sales. Like people have to say no to us. It's part and parcel. But I think the average figures I've seen floating around LinkedIn recently are somewhere between it takes about 12 to 35 touch points before somebody will engage in conversation with you. If this is your first email, you have still got another 34 touch points potentially to go. So bearing that in mind, so rather than thinking I have failed today, I would say I've got closer to 50 people.
Mm.
I've gone into that world. So there's lots of really clever reframe tricks that you can use. But in anything that is requires a really strong resilience for sales, it's looking at what you've done well that day. So rather than I sent 50 emails and got no results, I would be saying, let's recognize the behavior. I've sent 50 emails, so I'm confident I've ticked off the first step. And tomorrow I'm going to do the second step, or next week, or whatever that looks like.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great tip. And thinking of this even further, sometimes I'm kind of thinking, how can we either highlight the benefit in a better way? Probably if I just compare it with a coffee shop, for example, or a chocolate shop, right? Like that they have some product which is tangible, that the product everyone knows what a cup of coffee looks like or a bar of chocolate, right? And then at the end, it's just about, do you like chocolate? Do you eat chocolate? Is this too expensive? Is this, within, the range of what you are looking for? But with recruiting, it's kind of different, it feels like, because it's a service, it's not tangible.
Yeah.
And then we are just asking, do you need recruiters? Do you need my help? Like, are there any better ways how to offer the recruiting service on the market?
Absolutely. And again, this probably does come back to mindset a little bit as well. I always think the more that we go to market saying, "Can I help you with that? Can I help you with that?" It feels a little bit like we work in retail. Somebody walks into our shop and we say, "Hi, can I help you today?" And we
Mhm,
also know that most of us get repelled by the
mhm,
salesperson. And even if we very clearly need help, we go, "I'm fine, thank you. I'm just browsing. Please leave me alone. I'll come to you." When we do outbound sales calls, they've not even come into our shop. So we're kind of, if you to use the retail analogy, we're going out onto the street, grabbing them and saying, "Hey, can I help you? Come in my shop." And they're going, "Oh my God, like psycho, leave me alone." So I like to get my recruiters to change the way they think. We're not offering to help. We are looking to see if we can partner with businesses to help them find solutions to fix their staffing problems. So one of the things that I trained the guys that I work with on is to start to remove the word, sorry, can I help you with any recruitment, and replace it with, what I'm looking to do is understand your business and see if there's an opportunity that we can partner, to see if there's an opportunity where we could potentially support you if our service is right for you. Because if we look at the variety of services out in the recruitment industry right now, there's some people that just pick up a CV, don't call the candidate, take the details off, whack it over to a client and see what happens. And then on the other end of the extreme, you've got people that do hour-long face-to-face meetings, do full interviews, challenge, reference check, and then send them over to clients. So we know there's a whole scope of service. All your clients know when you're prospecting is that you're a recruiter. They don't know if you're A or B or somewhere in the middle.
mm,
So to change up the language, I would be looking at, what are the problems of your market? So is it that there's, a certain level of person that doesn't exist? Is it that they've got a high turnover? Like, what is the problem? And then in your written dialogue, address that problem. I work with other companies like you who struggle. So many years ago, this is not recruitment, when I ran my own training consultancy, my mantra was, "Hey, I help people like you. I work with SME recruitment owners who just don't have the time to train their staff because they're
mm.
doing everything else. What I'd love to do is have an opportunity to talk to you about how potentially we might work together." So it's just flipping it from that desperate need of, I need jobs, because we don't. We don't. We need good, solid, qualified opportunity to work on and to work together. Like, we're not, I don't know about any other recruiter, but I'm not massively interested in a job that's out with 10 other agencies that hasn't been filled for 6 months. That's just a tick box on my KPIs. What I want is a client who, maybe when I start speaking to them, isn't recruiting,
Yeah.
but it's looking to explore a partnership relationship, that then we can start talking. And then when they are recruiting, boom, we're straight in and we offer them a high quality, high value service.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that sounds like a next level, right? If even if we compare it with services like lawyers or doctors, they are not really begging prospective clients for a
Nope.
job, right? They are just positioning themselves as a professional consultant, and then we come their way. So it's even kind of the question now: should we even do the outbound if it is so draining our energy, or should we on the inbound marketing and collect leads?
It's I mean, I'm quite simply quite simplistic when it comes to recruitment. Um, and it's never as easy as what I pretend it is. There's obviously a lot of skill and nuance that goes into it. But I always think, if you've got one client or one candidate, you have got the grassroots of a recruitment company. Because that is, if two people think you're great, a candidate and a client, all we need to do from that point is maximize them and start to grow. Who is in their network? Who have they worked for before? Who have they worked with before? Who can they introduce me to? And for me, this is a whole kind of, how do we mushroom from where we are, and absolutely maximize the people that we're already working with? I think it'd be a beautiful thing if we could position recruitment as that: you go onto Google, you search for the best agency, and then you approach them. I can't see how we're going to get there because we're such a saturated industry and there's so many of us, and a lot of agencies still haven't quite figured out what their niche is. So I think, yeah, there's still a place for outbound, but it's targeting the right people. I think if you're a generalist recruitment agency right now, that's quite tricky because who are you talking to? You're talking to everybody. Whereas if you're somebody that can think of a really tight niche now, I always go back years ago, I couldn't place heating, ventilation, air conditioning engineers. They were impossible to find. So I always think, if you position yourself and you ring every heating, ventilation, and air conditioning company in the UK and say, hi, I only work with heating, ventilation, air conditioning engineers between 40 and 45,000, and I work with companies like yours. Tell me you're open for discussion. That's like somebody's knocking on the door at the right time because they only work in your market. If you knock on that same door and go, hey, I work with heating, ventilation, air conditioning engineers. I also work with salespeople and I work with finance people and I have some HR people on my books. Like the client is then like, who are
Mhm.
you and
Yeah.
what are you?
Yeah, yeah. It would not be a good lawyer or doctor either, right? Someone who focuses on everything.
No, well, we know if you, I don't know about you, but obviously we're in different parts of the world, but in the UK, if you call your doctor, you spend forever trying to get in. Then when you get in, the next you're only going there to be referred, unless it's your common cold. But if you've got backache, you're waiting to be referred to the specialist, orthopedics or chiropractor. If I don't know, your eyes hurt, you're waiting to go see the eye specialist. That's the whole point. Like we refer on, and then we know it's harder to get into. So as the recruitment industry, the more specialist we are, in my opinion, the easier it is to do business because it's much clearer as to who we are and what we can offer.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned the importance of niches. Would you suggest, especially for our audience of technology recruiters, would you suggest they focus on a specific target industry, for example, recruiting for fintech companies, or
Yeah.
would you rather say that you would suggest to focus on a part of the IT world? So, for example, there is cybersecurity or data or machine learning or web development, which then they can offer the services to fintech companies as well as healthcare companies and others.
It's a good question, and without fully digging into the data of it, it's hard to fully advise. But I would speak to the client about what's going to be the most benefit. And also, for me, it's about understanding transition of candidate. If you could take a software developer from fintech and put them into pharma, then you can probably spread that.
Mhm.
And then I would niche based on the company size and the point of contact. So don't try and service an SME down the road and also try and service one of the big fours at the same time. Like choose
Mhm.
your market.
Mhm.
Again, bringing it back down to really simplistics, I would say if I was to meet you in the street and say, "Hey, what do you do?" It should be really clear. So I work with fintech companies um, in the UK who are somewhere between 2 and 600 people, and I provide them with technical staff between 60,000 and 120. And I go, "Cool, I understand that." If
Mhm.
you start to go, well, I work with solution-based technological companies, offering them a range of staff from 25 to 130, I walk away going, I'm not really sure what you do.
Mhm. Mhm.
That you're a recruiter.
Yeah.
So understanding your niche for me would be, it's almost like the tighter the niche, um, and the easier it can be. Years ago, I worked within conference and exhibition recruitment in the UK. So I supplied sales and marketing people to the conference and exhibition market in the city of London, which I believe, now it's going back some years, so forgive me if my numbers are hazy, but I believe there was about 200 companies, and all of those 200 companies knew who me and my team were. And we
Mhm.
recruited for 100 and we headhunted from the other 100. And it
Wow.
was possibly my favorite 5 years in recruitment. And we were just a very tight niche.
Nice, nice. So the market was, or the niche you specialized in was sales executives?
Yeah,
Yeah.
mid-level sales and marketing people.
Interesting. Well, it's so hard to choose the niche, especially because there are so many different options now in the IT space. People work remotely, so also, the recruiter from Romania can work for a
Yeah,
client in the UK.
great, isn't it? I love it.
It is, unless you need to meet clients on site, probably to knock on their doors.
Yeah.
What are some ways to get more visible? And of course, one way is to post on LinkedIn, which lots of people try. But given the remote jobs and the international clients, how would you go about getting more visibility in front of the right clients once you have more clarity about the niche?
So once you've got clarity, it's then looking at how, because what we're effectively doing, we want to become a dominant force in that world, don't we? So we want people to know. So first of all, quality of role. So doing your job well, theoretically, will help you build on referrals because people refer on good people. So if we just do our job really well, that should be a starting point. But if we want to get bigger than that, yeah, LinkedIn. It's a tool that some people do amazingly and some people do terribly.
Mhm.
Being visible on LinkedIn doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, mean just sharing the company blog 3 times a week and posting a job ad. It's boring. Becoming visible on LinkedIn, I would say, is a roll your sleeves up and put yourself in for the long term. Like, what do you want to post about? What's relevant to your market? And you need to be prepared to show yourself. Like
Mm.
people like people from that side. The other route is just consistency of follow up. If you want to become known in your market, you're going to have to follow up and follow up and follow up so more people are aware of you. Give you an example. So let's say we approach a client who's in our avatar that we really want to work with, and we send them an email and they don't answer.
Mm.
So 2 weeks later, we market a candidate in and they still don't answer because, hey, we sent them 2 cold emails. Then we try and ring them 3 weeks later and they don't answer. And then we go, this client is never going to buy from me. Like
Mhm.
that's not going to happen. And we never call them again. So whose fault is it that that client never bought from us? Because were they supposed to magically know? So um, and again, not to keep flipping back to mindset, but I work with recruiters and they just go, they'll never buy from me. And I was like, well, they definitely won't with that attitude. So
Mhm.
flipping it, what's going to be our next move? What's going to be our next move? Like, how do we keep going with this until we find how our way in is? And again, I'm probably straying away a little bit from the question. If you've got a really clear understanding of who you're targeting, it's much easier because then you look at your client
Mhm.
list and go, right, I've not attempted to get in with this client for 2 weeks. What am I going to do this week?
Yeah, yeah.
What's that tenacity of follow up? Or what have we got that's automated that's going out that needs a bit of the human touch?
Mhm. And when you are saying if the client doesn't respond, do you mean a specific person from the company?
Yeah.
Um, there could be one person or three prospective, clients that you or personas that you reach out to. So, do you usually reach out to more people, like three, five people from one company at the same time?
I would recommend that you look at who typically buys from you. So who is that person? Is it normally the tech director? Is it talent acquisition? Because that's who you should be formulating your support proposal around from that side. Obviously, if you are hitting a brick wall, I would recommend that if there's an alternative point of contact, we
Mhm.
try them alongside as well. It depends on the side of your niche. If you're targeting companies of less than 100 heads, there is a chance if you do a multi-contact approach that all your emails land at the exact same time or everybody's phone suddenly dings with a LinkedIn connection and you're approaching everybody in the office. So it's just about having sensibility of your market.
Mm. Well, that's just interesting how many different options there are to the business development, and so many challenges as well. It's just also crazy now, given the anti-spam activities by Google and Microsoft. Now they are making
Yes.
it harder to send the unsolicited emails, bulk emails, but also individual emails that seem to land in spam.
Yeah.
So, so it will be interesting to see what are the next ways how to reach out to those prospective clients.
We have to be one step ahead of the curve and also relying just purely on tech and email you're just relying on one avenue now. For me, it's having systems flowing so you process what we can process, but at the same point it's then having creativity. I, Again, I've worked in recruitment for a very long time. It can be a little bit dull, like we all do the same things. I post COVID, I went on site for about a year with a number of different agencies. And one of the fun games that I would play is show me your LinkedIn inbox and show me how many rec to rec agencies have approached you today or this week. And my guess was always right. There were at least 15 to 20. And if you read the messages, they were all the same.
Mm,
Like, "Hey, I appreciate that you are probably really happy in your job right now. However, I've got an awesome opportunity that I'd love to speak to you about," or, "Hey, hope you're well. I know you might not be looking for a job right now." Do you know what I mean? There was nothing, and I
mm,
was kind of like, "Right, look at that, and what can be your differentiator? What could that look like?" And, depending on your market, the scope is endless. Do you send a video? Do you drop a voice note? Do you completely ignore LinkedIn and go and find them on Facebook? Like, where are we build boundaries as recruiters. And somebody said to me once, approach them on Facebook, and I was like, "Oh God, no, like, I couldn't do that. That feels really rude." Then I was like, "But why would I approach them on LinkedIn? I won't approach them on Facebook. Like,
mhm,
what am I doing?" And actually, like, we don't want to become stalkers. Please don't get me wrong on this side, but there has to be a degree of creativity. Now, some clients will hate it when they get approached on LinkedIn. Some clients will hate it when you call them in the office. Others will love it.
yeah,
So we don't know that until somebody says, "Actually, do you know what? Please don't talk to me anymore on LinkedIn." We go, "Cool, not a problem." We
mm,
politely back away, and then we look at how else we could reach out to them.
yeah. Well, it's really interesting to see how the mindset plays a different role because we also when we reach out we need to be kind of optimistic, enthusiastic, right? But also when no one is responding, we may not really feel like you know.
Absolutely. I had to do some sales calls the other day, then I was genuinely blown away that I made something like 6 and no one answered my call. I was like, "Well, this is rude."
Yeah, yeah.
So 22 years ago, I did 80 cold calls a day.
Wow.
And I was listening to another podcast on this the other day about resilience in recruitment. Can you grow it? Was I think was the topic of the conversation that people were talking about is, and I think you have to, when you're going to do something that is going to involve a lot of rejection, you need to look at how you're going to pull yourself back from that and what you're going to learn from the experience every time, um, and how to do it better. Although I train on business development and I've had a successful history in business development, cold calling is quite frankly my least favorite thing to do. And I find that replicated in probably about 75% of the people I train.
Mm,
So there are ways and routes that we don't have to do cold calling, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to be calling. But the reflection tool of knowing your data, how many cold calls or how many calls will it take for me to get through to a contact? Right, that should be 15. So do
mm,
I have 15 people to call today?
yeah.
Uh, so pulling it back to reality, we used to play a game in our old agency years ago, and it was the no game. You got a point every time somebody said no to you, and at the end of the day, the person with the most no's got a bottle of wine. It was a very daft game, but can you imagine, like, if you got a yes and you got a client visit, that was brilliant. But also, it was to encourage a volume of dials.
Mm,
Obviously, it was a long time ago. But if you got rejected the most, you won. Like, talk about that for reverse psychology in your head. So that was, tiny little things like that can really work.
that's
Um,
brilliant.
yeah, but
That's
we can build powerful mindsets. It's just about being realistic with yourself.
mhm. And on this note, do you have any tips on how to kind of reposition the recruiter or the agency owner as a valuable asset on the market? Just to kind of give you some context to this. When I'm thinking about a lawyer or a doctor, like they usually go through some certification, they finish years of studies, and then they are on the market ready to present their professional skills. But recruiters often transition from one industry to another. They often don't have any formal certification. They study probably psychology or whatever. And
Mhm.
then they are kind of begging for the next project to work on, and then maybe clients don't even appreciate their work because they may work with three, four, five
Yeah.
recruiters on contingent level at the same time, which would never happen with doctors or
No.
lawyers. So how can the recruiter go from kind of this negative mindset of being pushed down, knowing that the client works with three other recruiters at the same time and may not even get paid at the end of the month? Like how to get out of this trap?
The recruits. So don't forget that as an industry, we put ourselves in this trap. Like, we're paying the price of our forefathers, as it were, that, somebody somewhere along the line thought it was a great idea that we all work on the same job and one of us gets paid. Like, it's madness when you think about it. Again, I did a training session on this yesterday, Michael, so it's really relevant. You have to know what the work is that you want. If you don't know how you want to work with a client, how the heck can they ever know? So, and this, it sounds very flippant when I say it off my tongue, and it took me a very long time to get to it in my own recruitment career. But when I sat in front of clients who were like, "Well, we've got 3 other agencies," I'd say, "Oh, thank you very much, but I'm afraid that's not for me. I don't do that. I only work on exclusive roles because that's when I give you the very, very best service, and I pride myself on giving you the very, very best service." Now, the challenge is if you can't win exclusive business, all that's going to happen is you say no to lots of people. So we take the client on a journey. But
Mhm.
um, if you're the recruiter that goes out, meets a client, says, "I'd love to work with you exclusively," the client says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've got 3 other agencies and I'm going to use 4 of you." And you go, "Oh, okay, fine." And you never speak to the client about exclusivity again, then that is you. That's not the client. So when we're trying to take the client from being, a low value, I suppose, C level client to an A, I would be saying, look, on an absolute one off, I will look at this role with multiple agencies. I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. This is not how I work. And there's numerous challenges which I'll talk you through, multi representation of candidates, me not being able to take the time that I need to be able to push, to be able to find the best candidates, not just the quickest candidates. And what I'd like to do is once you've placed the role, be that through me or the other agencies, I'd love to have a review meeting with you. And then we can start to work about, what went wrong for you, what went right. You have to be laying the paving stones for how you want to do it differently. And you've got to be the trailblazer that's saying, there's a better way. And that then comes down to questioning. So when the client's finished that role, and again, whether you've placed it or the other agency, go in, grab a coffee, or worst case, you mentioned about obviously the fact that we can work globally now. We do it on Teams. If you're really clever, find a local Starbucks near to them and pay someone to go and deliver a coffee to the office for a nice touch. But if not, we sit here and say, okay, let's ask some questions. What worked really well in that process? What didn't work for you? Where did you feel the challenges? Where could it have been improved? Uh, and we know that if you're working multi agencies, they'll say, well, I had to read loads of CVs, or you guys all sent the same person. What do you think the reflection was on your brand when
Mm.
3 agencies introduced the same person? And what did that tell you, Mr. Client, about the conversations the agencies were having with the candidate? Because how does a candidate get sent 3 times unless they don't know they're being sent? So we start to look for the problem,
Mm.
and then we can reverse it back, and then we can sell for next time. That actually next time, how open would you be to doing it a little bit differently? Let me tell you about how I worked on our last successful campaign. On our
Mm.
last successful campaign, I was fully exclusive. We had agreed times. We did this and this and this service. And what happened was the client hired within 4 weeks, and all they had to do was show up to first and second interviews. In fact, they've left us a glowing testimonial over on my LinkedIn. I'll send a copy of it to you later. So it's just building in stepping stones to get to where you want to be, but accepting that you might not place the job.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, those contingent jobs are much easier to get, but what you are just explaining takes courage, some business acumen as well.
Yes. Yeah, and a little bit of winging it, at that time. But, like, we create this culture, this more, like, we need more and we'll share jobs, and, it is a big pivot point for people when they suddenly realize that the recruiter that works on, I don't know, 20 jobs and places 2, but feels busy all day long, 'cause we love to feel busy.
Mhm.
But if you're placing only 2, and then you look at the other recruiter that's working on 4 jobs and is placing 3, like, and who isn't working till midnight every night, being unsuccessful. So
Yeah.
there is a one woman crusade to change the whole industry. Wouldn't it be lovely if all recruitment agencies just woke up one morning and went, "Do you know what, guys? We're going to work at the same fee and we're going to work all on retained contracts. And as an industry, that's what we're going to do
Yeah.
to see what would happen." But it's probably not going to happen tomorrow. But that's what I'd be conscious of. Like,
Mm.
Take your clients on a journey, know what your service is, and know when you're better. I always knew that if I worked on repeated on roles with other agencies and an exclusive job came in, I would favor the exclusive job. It makes sense, and therefore the other client that I pitched to would get a poor service, and I don't like giving a poor service. So at the very least I could do would be to tell the client and be really truthful
Yeah.
and say that. And if the client still wants to work the other way, then they just go back to being a prospect, and I
Mm.
continue.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. I mean, there are so many different ways how to approach this, but yeah, I mean, this probably requires a full training or a workshop or maybe a long-term coaching.
Yes, and I'm a very, very big fan of scripts. Every time I've gone into role play on you, I would say that that has been a script in my
Mm.
path. Like, know the words you want to say, learn them, and go play the part of a recruiter.
Yeah, yeah. And on this note, actually, you were saying the contingent contracts you probably just leave aside. Have you also seen some other maybe innovative models, business models that combine the contingent model with some other form of prepayment, post-payment, or charge per whatever kind of activity just to offset the costs, even if the candidate is not hired?
Yeah, I've seen companies recently work with cancellation fees. So, if you pull the role, or if, somebody that works in accounts suddenly refers their friend who's perfect for the job and we've done all the
Mhm.
work, that
Yeah.
there's a cancellation option. I've seen, we use a phrase called skin in the game. So I've seen some clients charge a very nominal fee up front, like, you're talking like 5%, but just to get the client commitment.
Mhm.
My theory is if the client will pay you, 500 or 1,000 euros, they'll probably pay you 5,000. It's the act of actually physically transferring the money that gets the commitment. Um, I've seen some people offer retained services for free, but then after 30 days, charge the first retainer. Again, think about what your business needs and think about that creativity of the solution. What would that look like? And then go test the market with it.
Mm.
But fundamentally, if the service doesn't back up what you're selling, they're not going to buy it again. So, and that's where, for me, the proof is literally in the pudding. Um, but there are creative options. It's just think about what you want that to look like.
Awesome. Well, you are sharing so valuable insights about like how to position yourself, how to choose the niche, how to even charge for the services. Where can people learn more? You mentioned some training just a while ago.
Yeah. So, well, my company, which is Centered Excellence, we run a program for business owners where we help them build the foundations of their business and then scale up. But within that, we also offer a recruitment academy. So we offer training to recruiters of all levels, but it can be a complete rookie, just up to somebody who wants to get better at their job. And that's a 16-week course. So I literally launched one yesterday. So I have 40 brand new recruiters, which is awesome. So the best place to find out about us is to go to Centered Excellence website, or obviously come find me on LinkedIn, and I will talk to you for hours about how we can help you build strong revenue streams and reoccurring revenue and get your staff to the same level.
Awesome. Well, there are so many insights to uncover and learn from you and your colleagues. I could also listen to you for the next 2 hours, but we don't have that much time, unfortunately, when you have some other meeting booked in just a few minutes. So I'll include the link in the show notes and also on YouTube in the description with your LinkedIn profile. Is there anything else you would like to kind of mention to fellow recruiters who are transitioning from non-tech to the IT world, to the IT technology space?
For me, my main advice to anybody in the market is be creative in what is a loud industry, and at the moment a little bit more challenged than what we would all like, but also commit to that creativity. So don't just try something once, like test it 50 or 60 times, and then determine if it works. And my advice to anybody in recruitment is know your data. If you
Hmm.
don't know your data, you are just feeling successful or feeling unsuccessful. Let the data tell you. So track everything you do from your BD calls to your dials to your get throughs to your meetings, and then let the data tell you how you should drive forward.
That's a great
How
value.
to suck the fun out of recruitment at the end of the day, but it works.
Well, let's do what works. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for sharing these insights. Thanks for being here with us, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.